Next, I'd like to invite Tushar Mishra. So we're going to be Tushar is going to be talking about managing a consistent and delightful customer experience. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to him and Tushar, please.
Yeah. Okay, hi, hello everybody. Now this is a huge topic, managing a consistent and delightful customer experience. So I'm gonna skip all the basics, NPS, CSAT, surveys, how to design survey, everything. Let's just dive into some ideas that I can share with you which might be useful in your organization, which we have learned in our experience of working with 1,000+ businesses, trying to implement different CX strategies, failing, and then learning from that. Now the first thing I would like to go or touch upon is, when we think of customer experience, this is what we usually think of, right? Customer experience means, okay, I'm going to measure my NPS, how many number of complaints am I getting, what is the rating after support call, my support team, my churn. This is customer experience, right? In fact, when most people think about customer experience, they think about customer experience as a small function or a small team in the organization, right? This is my support team or this is my customer delight team which is taking care of customer experience. But if you actually look at it and if you actually look at all the bad experience that you've had with any brand, be it a B2B brand, be it a restaurant, be it a hotel, you would observe that there are so many touch points where the experience can fail, which is not in the control of the experience team or the support team. For an example, you go and you want to buy a CRM system, right? What is the first thing that you do when you want to buy a CRM system? You type on Google, like, best CRM system for a top 5 or a small company. You get a list. From those lists, then you go to different websites and you check out their reviews, right? From those reviews, then you see, okay, this looks good, this matches my requirement. Then you would go to their actual website, right? And if you click on, okay, they don't have a free trial, you have to talk to the agent, and agent calls you after 2 days, right? That's a bad experience. They have already lost that sale and you have gone with somebody else. Now, this is a completely sales-led process, but still comes under purview of customer experience. In fact, if you look at customer experience, organizations are led by customer experience. So there are multiple facts that we can throw around, right? Okay, by 2020, customer experience will overtake price and competition, your product is the key brand differentiator, and multiple other stats which are there. But if you think of it, everything inside the organization, from your sales process to your marketing, to your customer success, to your support, to your user experience, everything touches the customer. So customer experience, the way we have to relook or redefine it, is it is an aggregation of how you make your customer feel at every point in the journey with you, right? Starts right from when they look at your ad somewhere in Google to when they're buying again from you. Everything in between comes to customer experience. Now, in the first half of the talk, I'll be talking more about how we are currently measuring customer experience and what are the faults in measuring customer experience like that. And next half of the talk, I'll be talking more about some quick or some very general ideas about how you can start building a customer experience program for your own company. Okay, so let's come to the first part. Now here, when we talk about, okay, customer experience and all of this, it's an aggregation of everything, then how do you measure this? How do you ask customers so many questions? So this means that your survey form or your NPS form will now have 20 questions, right? How was your first call with us? How was your sales call with us? Could you find the agent easily? And then you're going to piss the customer off. So how do you actually measure all this? The fact is, something very interesting has happened in the past 5 to 6 years. Consumers today are themselves sharing insights online. In fact, if you look at it, there was a study done by Review Tracker which says 80% of consumers today are reading reviews, and more customers today want to seek out actual genuine reviews than seek out deals or discounts, which means there are equal number of customers who are also talking about you online or on multiple channels, and also people who are looking to digest that information. Which basically means that you already have a lot of footprints that the customers are leaving. Now, this is one example of the footprint, right? Another footprint is the way they're using your product and the way your employees are talking to them. In fact, we call them unsolicited data, right? This is the data that you're not soliciting from the customer. So soliciting data is when you send a feedback or a survey form to the customer is filling it and you get the reply back. Unsolicited feedback form is, unsolicited data is when you are not asking customer for data, but he's giving you, right? This could be in form of something he's writing on Facebook, a blog that he's written about your product, a blog that he's written about 10 different products, when he calls your support team, when he calls your marketing team, when he calls your sales team, internal data that you have in your systems, everything put together is unsolicited data. And all the companies that we've ever worked with, none of them take this into consideration when they calculate any customer experience metrics. So customer experience today in organization is only measured on solicited data, which is I will ask my customer, how likely are you to recommend me to my friends and family? You will tell me an answer, and that will be one metric which I'll be using to calculate my NPS and to know how well I'm doing with my customers, right? And like we discussed, that's flawed. And let me give you some more examples how that is flawed. Today, like I just said, data is sitting in silos. There is a high probability of creating a bias or missing important insights or even contradicting results. Let me show you how it gives contradicting results. Now, next slide I'm going to be showing you is actual data from one of our customers. Now, look at this. This customer is a hotel chain. They have three main sources of collecting feedback from customer. One is SMS feedback, in which they send out SMS to the customer after checkout. Tab-based feedback, so while the customer is checking out, they can give the feedback, and unsolicited feedback, which is all the feedback that you have on TripAdvisor, Holiday IQ, review, all the different reviews that you have, right? When you look at their scores, location B performs better than location A in all these individual spectrums, right? SMS feedback, location B scores better. Tab-based, location B scores better. Unsolicited, B scores better. But if you look at the overall data, and when I put them all together, I see that location A is actually doing better than location B. Now, this interesting trend, which often occurs in data, if you look at data in small parts, and if you look at data aggregated, they show a very different pattern. This simple phenomena is known as, it's a simple statistical phenomena, it's known as Simpsons Paradox. And a lot of us are currently, in our data, there's this paradox that we are not able to identify, right? When I look at small portion of data, I'm looking, okay, this is the trend, right? Most of my customers think my features are great, right? I look at that, but I'm totally ignoring the other segment, not putting them together, and I have a completely different view of what my customers actually think. Now, this is a very interesting insight that we got from working with our customers. And when we share this insight with our customers, and I'm sure you, a lot of you will also have these apprehensions, they have certain myths about this unsolicited data and why should we add them or why shouldn't we add them. Now, first, people only went online. There are mostly negative feedback online, right? This is the number one apprehension or number one myth that our customers usually have. I'm sure some of you also have. Then they're written by competitors, so my feedback online, it's not true, it's not genuine, it's mostly written by my competitors. And then the classic, my volumes are too low, right? I will rather ask my customers directly, I don't have the bandwidth, there are less reviews online, I can't do anything about it. But when you actually look at it, when we looked at our data, we found that 78% of reviews from all our customers had an average rating of 4+. Which is completely opposite to what the popular opinion is, right? That you think that mostly people went online or write negative reviews online. In fact, most of your businesses will have a positive rating online if you look at it today. Yes, they might be written by competitors, but if a large set of your customers are happy and they are writing about you online, these will be outliers. And most of these platforms where people write reviews do have certain checks and balances in places using which they find out if a review is genuine or not. And third, if my volumes are too low, then you have to do something about it, right? Volumes being too low is a problem. Because customers, before buying, want to look at what other customers are talking about you. If you're not telling them what other customers are talking about you, then they don't trust you, right? This is the first trust that you create with the customers. Customers today are experiencing your product even before they come to you. So with all of that, should we look at customer experience differently? We look at customer experience the same way, we just have to change the way we measure it, or we have to change the way we implement the strategies. Rather than looking at it from a silo or from a department perspective, we have to look at customer experience from a holistic and an organization perspective, okay? So what should a CX program look like? What should a customer experience program for an organization look like? Customers should have a convenient and effortless channel of their choice to give you feedback, right? So you do not have to make it hard for customer or, okay, I just have this form. Right, a lot of customers we talk to, they say, hey, I have a form on my website, their customers can talk to me. But how many customers want to go on the form and give feedback, right? Do you have any other channels? Where else can they give feedback? What are the convenient channels for them? It should be proactive as well as reactive in real time. Now, whenever it comes to customer experience and anything related to employee experience, customer experience, time is of essence, right? If you are reacting after 2 days or T minus whatever, then you've already lost the customer and the damage has been done. So it has to be reactive and proactive in real time. Third, and the most important part, entire organization has to be aligned towards CX, right? It shouldn't be that, okay, this is one department which will look after customer experience. What this department does is it calculates NPS, takes out surveys, and tells me. right? So entire organization has to be aligned towards it, and I'll talk about how you can do that. And finally, there has to be a seamless flow of reviews feedback across functions, because whatever customer is experiencing is a reflection of what these functions are doing, right? So you have to tell them that what the customer is doing. A lot of time in most companies, what happens is, okay, there is a barrier between the customer, what customer is saying, and what people are doing at the back end. You have to break that barrier, and there has to be a seamless flow of information between what the customer says and what people are looking at. In short, your program has to be holistic, consistent, and unbiased, right? Remove all the bias, make it holistic, include as many data points as you can, and make it consistent. So don't make it periodic or do mystery audits, etc. Now in the next section, I will be actually telling you how can you go about designing such a program. This might be a good time to take out your notepads. So I will not be going in all the points in detail. I'll be walking you through them just on the surface of it. If you have any more questions on it, we can definitely connect after this and we can talk in detail. Now this is a quick guide. This does not include anything. This is not a very comprehensive guide. This is just to give you some ideas about things which you already might not be doing. Now number one, map out the journey your customer takes and find all the points where experience might fail, right? People give it very fancy names, customer journey mapping, this, that, everything. As simple as that, find out what are the different steps that your customer is taking when he's interacting with you. And for each of these steps, find out what are the different parameters which can lead to failure of experience at that point, right? So for example, if I'm a CRM company, the first interaction that my customer might have with me is Google ad. So this is one of the iteration, right? There could be 100 different iterations like this. Right, from Google Ads, the person will come to my website. Now in website, different parameters could be the UX of my website, where is the sales button, where is the free trial button, and how fast available is my sale. These could be the 4 parameters in the website. Then my sales process, how fast does my team respond, how knowledgeable is my team, how much helpful is my the sales team, could be different parameters of that. So the first step is you just draw out every point that your customer experiences you, and find out the parameters for each of these points. Let's call it TA for now, right? Now next, which is very important, is define your customer segments clearly. All feedback is not same feedback. Taking from the same example that we had in the past slide, right? There was a talk that I was attending before this, which was about pricing, and there a question was asked that what are the differences in pricing that you have for your highest paying and lowest paying customers, right? And somebody had an enterprise customer and also a customer who is a single user. Now it is very important for you to know who your product caters to and mostly listen to them rather than listening to everybody who's using the product. Right? Because then again, this creates bias. So this is where you're including your own weights into the system to exclude the bias. For example, if my customer works in large enterprise, is looking for a comprehensive solution, so he has a huge problem or he has multiple features that he requires and needs constant support, then probably I need a very strong support team, so I can't hire 10K people, I need to hire 30, 40K people for my support, right? See how everything binds to it. If they need a comprehensive solution, then I don't need to work on, say, making the product very easy. I probably need to work more on giving out very, very detailed features, right? And this is my large enterprise customer. Now what you do with this is you give it a weight. So for example, you have 5 different customer segments. So you say, okay, this is my customer A, B, C, D, E. Now when a feedback comes from customer A, right, segment A, you assign it a weight, say 0.7. B, it's 1.2. C, it's 0.6. So you have these weights, which will come from your own intuition, right? Who your customer is, who your brand stands for. So this is something that you do it on your end. Now the next process is, what is your unique positioning? Now this is where another weight comes into place, and I'm going to be using a jargon which you can use to take out this weight, but let's talk about what the unique positioning means here. Let us look at these 2 sample reviews. Review number 1 gives it a 4 star and says, the app works flawlessly. I really like the analytics module, but when I need support, they usually reply in an hour, not instantly. Okay, so he has a slight problem with the support, but he's given 4 stars, only 1 point cut for it. And the other person has a problem with the feature and is given 2 stars. Now, when you have thousands of these reviews, or you have a lot of these reviews, you have the aspects or the parameter. So here the parameter becomes right? Support is one parameter. So support is negative when the rating is 4-star, and here a feature is negative when the rating is 2-star. When you have multiple of these different parameters lined down, you can actually take out weights for each of them, looking at your own past data. So you can add heuristics here, you can add what we call a little bit of machine learning here, where you can learn from past data and adjust these weights, and have another weight introduced to your model, which is weight of aspects. Right? So we have 3 different parameters right now in the whole CX program that we're creating. First is I am making my journey map. Second is for each point in my journey map, I'm finding out what are the main aspects or main parameters where my experience can fail. Third, for each of my customer segments, I'm assigning them weights. Fourth, for each of the aspects, I'm looking at my past data, or I'm looking at what my customers have already spoken to me about and giving out them weights. So what we have done now is completely taking away, making my data more personalized, or making my CX program more personalized towards my organization, instead of keeping it very, very general. So most CX program in organization are extremely general in nature, right? Okay, everybody has the same formula, everybody, but 2 companies are not the same, right? So when you look at Zoho and when you look at Salesforce, you don't expect the same service or the same experience from them, and that should reflect in your data. Now the next step is the how, when, and why. Now this, B2C companies are better at doing this, B2B companies usually suck at doing this. So define everything. You have all the parameters, you have all the channels where customers are talking about you, you have all the weights, you know who's responsible for what. Map out when there is a negative in, say, Get App, when somebody has written a negative review on Get App about, say, feature X, this directly goes to my department 1. From department 1, it is assigned to person B. The person B talks to the customer and goes back to channel. What you're doing here is, instead of making customer experience a process led by one team giving out robotic, non-contextual reply, you're making it a very contextual process where everybody has ownership of what the customer is looking at or what the customer is experiencing. The next step, extremely simple. When we already have these parameters, measure what your baselines are and set benchmarks. I'm running out of time, I'll just rush through the next steps. So you measure where you already are. So onboarding, I'm at X. Training, I'm at Y. Billing, I'm at Z. And this is where I want to be. Now benchmarks can be calculated by 2 ways. One, looking at your competitors, so looking at what are the best people in your industry doing, or setting your own benchmark for yourself. So if you're saying that I'm at 20, I don't know what my competitor is doing, but a 20% rise in this would be great. Right? So this would be where you set your benchmark. So you have now a journey map, you have parameters, each parameter has a weight. From those weights, you calculate scores, and for each of these parameters, you have scores now. Next, now most organizations really struggle with doing this, and I'll give you an example which one of our customers have done it. Now they're in a completely different industry. This is a hotel chain called Mayfair Hotels. In East India, they have about 10 hotels. What they have done is they have made each of the head of departments their incentive linked to the scores of that department. Right? So whatever customer reviews or customer feedback is coming, the scores calculated from that using those weights is detrimental in finding out what his variable pay would be. Now this is just one example, right, linking it to variable pay. But you have to make it KPI or KRAs of different people in your team and make them responsible for customer experience. Right? Again, not making it a functional thing, but doing it across organization. Again, so here there are a lot of points. I'll quickly skim through them. You have to, now when you have said that, you have a model in place, you have a baseline, you have benchmarks. Now you have to monitor this data proactively, which means set triggers for all parameters. Instead of when a customer complains, you reaching out to them, set parameters. So this is my benchmark. Every time my score goes below my benchmark, I get an instant notification, right? And I reach out and I fix the problem. I find out what the problem is and I solve it. Right? Periodically monitor data granularly. Then example that we read earlier, right? You have to look at each aspect, you have to look at each aspect, each location here. This is where your CX team comes into place, right? They look at data, they crunch numbers, and they find out insights from this. Or you can use some tool like Surveyor. Have a predictable model, like you have predictable sales. You can predict, okay, 3 months down the line, if I have these many leads, this is what my top lines would be. Have a model like that for your NPS also. You know that, okay, these are my parameters. I know that currently I have these many people in my team, and this is what my NPS or this is what my satisfaction score would be. And lastly, monitor your competitors' parameter. Now, history tells us that people have ignored and people have only looked at their own parameters. Things look great. But once you look outside, for example, if you look at, say, Amazon versus Barnes & Nobles at that point in time, all Barnes & Noble's customers were satisfied. They were all happy. Customer experience might have been great, right? If Barnes & Nobles was spending more or more on, say, making the experience better or making better in store, they would have failed. They did fail, but they failed because they did not look at what's happening across, right? Who's competing with you and what do customers want from them? Because it's very difficult to take out what customers want from customers directly. It's easier said than done. So you have to look at these footprints, you have to look at data, you have to look at what they're talking about competitors and how they react to that. And lastly, you have to continue to realign your business goals with CX results or vice versa, which means that, okay, so I find out from my data that for most of my customers, support is really important, right? I've given a high weight to support and my scores of support are also high, right? But this quarter, I was, say for example, for this quarter, my target was to hire 4 more support guys, right? So I look at this data and I see, okay, no, this is going well. I don't need to hire more support guys. Let me focus on something else, like this is the second parameter. Or vice versa. I see the support is low, then let me focus more on support. So you have to keep realigning them. If you just measure NPS as a compliance metrics and do business separately, you're not really measuring or actually inculcating customer experience in your organization. Again, we can talk a lot about it, but you have to set up delight loops. When you have these customers, you make segments, you find out for each segment what works for them, and you create different delight loops for them. So this could be a loyalty program, your clubs, your community, customers who haven't come back to you or who are not coming back to you. Why are they not coming back to you? Have a different program for them. So have these structures laid out so you can align them well to sales and marketing also. Finally, I'll leave you with some quick hacks. This is my final slide. You can ask me questions after this. Replying to reviews is extremely important. Product metrics, right? So you have product metrics that you see that one person is not coming back to you. Now that also gives you one touch point to look at.
So I just want to know the difference between B2B and B2C. What's the difference in data collection for unsolicited data? For which do you get more?
Great. So the line between B2C and B2B is thinning very fast now. Earlier, you only had, when we talked about online reviews, they were only about hotels, right? Then Zomato came into being, they're about restaurants. Today, even when you want to buy a nail cutter, you look at Amazon, you look at product review before buying it, right? And same is true for apps. How many of you who have a B2B SaaS companies are struggling or trying hard to get more reviews on Capterra and all these websites, right? We are, because we know when consumers are buying, they're looking at these reviews. So the trend is that as and when we go forward, because today marketing, people don't trust companies when it comes to marketing. They trust other customers. So if I know that this CRM is used by other company, which is sort of like me, and they feel that this is great, then I'm more confident that this will work best for me. I think there's one question there.
Hey, hi.
Hi.
So customers have questions and grievances as well, right?
Correct.
And then depending on the nature of the business, in order to answer those questions, you may need specialists within the organization.
Correct.
Who are different folks from the guys who are actually doing the responding, right?
Absolutely.
So when you look at TAT as responding, I can make it super quick.
Correct.
But when you say resolution of the whole thing, that will require a big internal churn. Right?
Correct.
So how do you see people sort of being able to fix that? Because that's really the jump of what you're able to do, right?
Correct. So a lot of our customers are struggling with this and we are trying multiple different things. One way to do is, so the challenge with doing this is that you have to understand the conversation that customer is doing. You have to understand the context of the conversation. So till now we can do the filtration. So for example, how we can make it easier now, right now, and all of you can do it. When there is a positive review, the sentiment is really high and it's a 5-star rated review. You know that this is a positive review. You can have certain set templates and you can mix them up to auto-reply them. So you don't need resources to do that at all. When it's, say, a neutral review about certain aspects, right, you find out, okay, this is a review about, say, marketing, or this is a review about my certain aspects. You already have an idea about, from your FAQs, from talking to customers, typical questions that they have. If it falls under umbrella of one of those typical questions, then auto-respond that. Or auto-respond with one checker, right? So you have that template already. Now the person, instead of crafting responses, is now checking and giving out responses. So there are multiple different ways which you can use or implement to sort of make that TAT really fast. And some companies try to do with Twitter bots. Some companies completely automated with bots, but I think a mix of bots or automated replying and human assistance can really bring the TAT down, which if I give you a real example, Barbecue Nation, one of our customers, they have been able to. Now, if you look at their reviews online, you would see most of them getting replied to within a few hours. And they have 114 outlets.
Which allow internal companies specifically to look at ORM or grievance management for their internal coordinations, right?
Correct.
Will have the pitfalls that you were talking about of being robotic, blah, blah.
Correct. So that is where I talked about data transparency, right? So if there is a question and you're auto-dating, so this is how it actually happens. So there is a negative response about food in my outlet in Amritsar, right? My team, my entire reply team or ORM team sits in Bangalore. Automatically, the system detects that this is about food. It assigns it to the chef in Amritsar. The chef in Amritsar has a TAT of half an hour or 45 minutes to respond to that, right? He comments internally within the tool. That reply then goes to the team which is sitting in Bangalore, which is the team which has to reply. Now they have the context to reply. So everything is still happening within hours, but with context. So that's one way to do it. And there are tools available.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks.
Anything else? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thanks a lot, guys.